Everyone. We've got a full packed schedule today and so excited to have you here, whether you've been with us from the beginning, whether you have joined us through the discovery workshops, whether you were with us at the whole system strategic planning event, or whether you're joining us today for the first time. Thank you for being here. Good to see all of you and excited to bring everybody up to date on where we are now. And so we've got a pretty packed schedule. I'll start with just a quick introductions. My name is Candy Castellanos, and I'm a whole systems change facilitator. I'm here with Ariel Sullivan, and we are your co-facilitators on this project. I'm going to jump in so you can see what we have in store for you. So give me just a moment. As you're joining, welcome. Thank you for being here. We're excited to be with you, and we're going to jump on in because we've got a full schedule for today, and we've got a lot of people that we cannot wait to hear from. And so get us going. So here we are. So we are at the halfway point of our 2-year project, improving the circularity of compostables and compost. This is a whole system strategic planning initiative. Today we are talking about the roadmap to activation, which is debriefing our 3-day strategic planning event we had in Denver and talking about how to get involved and next steps. So we're going to talk about just a brief overview about the project as a whole. We're going to be asking a couple of people to share about their experience from Denver. And then we're going to hear from each initiative team, and they're going to share about their initiative and kind of highlight kind of what is up now and what is up next. And we're going to go through kind of the 3 different ways initially to jump in and get involved. And so, Ariel, anything you want to share before we get started?
Nope, we're just really excited to reconvene with everyone and just bring everyone up to speed, get us all in the same place since we're all probably coming from different points in this journey.
Awesome. So this initiative involves stakeholders from various industries. We are an ecosystem. Some stakeholders may be considered competitors in this marketplace. And so this process shall not be used to obtain individual company advantage or be used in pursuit of any anti-competitive objective. To do so may violate state and federal antitrust laws. And so by participating in this process in this project, you agree to abide by state and federal antitrust laws. And so here we are. So this is a whole system strategic planning and systems change effort. And so we launched, like any good strategic planning, with discovery. And so we have kind of 3 core phases of this project. And so we have kind of everything it took to get us launched. We had a wonderful summit in March of 2023 that was the origin of this project. And so we got launched with our Future Search Steering Committee at the beginning of this year, hosted 14 discovery workshops, and were able to recruit and involve all the folks who were able to join us for the intensive 3-day strategic planning event. And so that event took place on September 23rd through 26th in Denver. And now we are coming together to share what happened at that event and talk about what activation is and what that means. And so we have a lot of different incredible folks who have been with us every step of the way. We have a couple of different layers of leadership. Our Future Search Steering Committee was with us for the beginning of this year to guide everything that led up to the amazing event that we had in September. So just a huge thank you to this amazing cross-sector group that came together and made the event such a success. In case you're joining us for the first time, we have an amazing array of resources through the 14 90-minute discovery workshops that we held with each different part of the system. And so we have a project YouTube channel, and so feel free to visit that channel. We're going to put it in the chat, and you can go back and listen to kind of all the different perspectives from where folks sit in the system. And we covered kind of what were challenges, what are opportunities, and then what each group is really looking for in terms of support from other parts of the system. And so the group that came together in Denver, just an amazing cross-section of the US composting community, ecosystem, and compostables industry. And so Ariel, if you want to talk a little bit about the event itself and kind of why it was organized the way it was and what we accomplished.
Yeah, thank you. So, this whole event was a large group intervention, whole system strategic planning event. We brought people through a highly structured process with activities that went from the whole system to very small group working groups of different configurations. So we had 13 different stakeholder groups that people would break into, and then we had some mixed stakeholder groups. So we were cross-pollinating the entire time from the small unit up to the whole unit. And we started in the past. We started building trust really with one another, getting to know one another. And then we did some reflection of the past, brought us to the present where we are right now with current trends, key challenges and opportunities. And then that built the foundation to vision around the future. And we did some really creative things about, and we'll show you some of these pictures so you can get a sense of like what the energy was. But the focus really was on what are we aligning around for the future? What is that common ground that we can all get behind? And once we align on common ground, what do we want to tactically do together? So you'll see here, and so this was at in Denver at the History of Colorado Center. We had the first day was really doing this grounding in on did a timeline activity where we co-created the story of compost and compostables and understood the past together. Talked about key challenges and opportunities using some of the insights from the discovery workshops. We brought that conversation into the room. And then we created this large mind map around key trends that impact circularity, and we pulse voted on trends that were most important. And that brought us into day two. So but one of really a powerful moment was the prows and sorries conversation. So each group got in their stakeholder group and they talked about what they were proud of and what they are sorry for. And it was this like moment of healing, I think, and releasing where folks kind of understood each other in different ways and built more trust with one another. And so were sharing their top three prouds and top three sorries. And then we talked about the future and what are different scenarios for the future. And folks got together and they did a kind of creative brainstorm on what the qualities would be of the future vision together. And then they put together a creative skit to kind of share what that looked like. And there were lots of laughs and just interesting creative ways. And as we were looking at these presentations, everyone in the audience was thinking through, well, what's common? And they were writing down on their notebooks, what's common in all of the things that I'm seeing across this wide variety of presentations. And that was really the basis of the common ground. And so we did a very interesting structured activity where we're like, well, what are the key concepts of the common ground? Are these unique ideas? How many different people in the room share this similar idea? What needs to be tweaked about this idea to make sure that it's fully representative? And then like, where's our energy? And that really was the beginning of the final day where it all really came together. So that was aligning around common ground. And so we came up with initiative statements. So these initiative statements are really what we're going to be showing you today and what we're going to be reporting out on. We started with 17 initiatives. We went through a highly structured process to clarify, like, what do we really mean by this initiative? Do folks have questions about what this initiative is? We gave groups opportunities to refine these, to clarify these, to show what's in and what's out, and to come up with that sentence. And then we had about 17 different sentences. We put them up onto the board and we used a Mentimeter voting tool that aligned with a FIST to 5 decision-making framework. Things that got 80% and above passed through. And so we did a live polling, live voting experience here. And so you'll see the things that were green, if they added up over 80 that they passed over into the planning stage. So we went from 17 and we got 10 initiatives. And that became the common ground agenda. And then we went into like two rounds of action planning. So where folks got to self-select what they wanted to rally around. We identified who the emerging leaders were and what some of those short-term and long-term actions could be. And that was the report out at the end of the day on day 3. So it was a highly like robust process. It generated a lot of energy. Anybody that was there can vouch for this, is that it was just really empowering and powerful. And folks came together. You'll see here, these were some of the polls that we did on the last day on day 3. So some of these comments just like highly positive. And it was exhausting, but it was transformative, and folks were really hopeful about what was possible for this industry to work together.
So,
So, yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
no, that's great. And one of the things that we wanted to just spend a couple of minutes on was, we knew it was an experience that not everybody would be able to come to. And so we started with everybody with the discovery workshops, like an hourglass. So we started with everybody. We concentrated into a microcosm of the system for the strategic planning event. And then here we are today in our third phase of activation, where we are bringing everything back out to everybody and just talking about how to get involved moving forward. And so from a couple of folks who participated in the event, starting with Emily McGill, would just love to hear kind of your take on what it was like to be there, what you thought this process made possible. And so, Emily, if you want to go first, and then we have an opportunity for a couple other people to share. And so, want to just make sure to see all of your beautiful faces. And so, Emily, let me know when you're ready.
Sure. Um, First of all, yeah, it's nice to see everyone's names in the room. I don't think I've ever been.
Oh, we lost your audio for just a sec. Yeah, it was working. Yep, there you go. Nope. Okay.
Hello?
Yes, there you go. All right.
Okay. I don't know if I felt as comfortable after any kind of conference or event reaching out to so many people on LinkedIn. I just met more people in one fell swoop and had what felt like genuine connections than I could have done on my own in a different format or different conference. After 11 years working kind of at the intersection of compostable packaging and compost, it was really encouraging to see this many people actually caring about collaboration. I got the sense that everyone who had a butt in a seat in our big opening circle every day had a vested interest in the outcomes, and that felt really important to the process. I think, as Ariel just mentioned, a really memorable moment for me was the prouds and sorries, not just because sitting with my stakeholder group, I heard my own things that think are great that I've done and my work has done, and the things that we haven't done or haven't done as great, that being echoed by others in my kind of stakeholder group around certification and standards and stuff. That was really cool. And hearing that from every other stakeholder group, it was a good perspective shift, and it was cathartic to hear some of the things that I blame others in the value chain for doing, acknowledging it the same way that I could acknowledge my problems. Um, Also, mapping the history on the first day helped me crystallize something I've thought for a long time, is that um, the development of industrial composting and the development of commercial compostable packaging is really intertwined. And that a lot of the problems and tensions that are so pressing, that feel so urgent, it feels like we're kind of still on time. It's still relatively new that these two industries both exist compared to some other industries, et cetera. And it feels right that we're working on the things we're working on right now. Also, when the voting happened for the different ideas, the idea that I felt really committed to got voted down. And that was a good wake-up call for me. I tend to be naive around the proprietary issues that are around data, both on the composter side and the packaging side, but I developed a bit more empathy for stakeholders across the value chain around that. Um, and yeah, in terms of key takeaways and things that I would share to people who weren't there, I think I saw that like every step in the value chain has the most insight into the steps directly before us and directly after us, but it's hard to see across the way. And so I think the discovery workshops will be valuable, like going forward. Um, and that although contamination prevention is a really top priority, that action group had the fewest participants. And so I think there's more work to do around ideating what can be done there so that it's really digestible and feels like we can chew on it. And then lastly, something that's really interesting for my work is I heard from composters, a couple, that they're interested in understanding what are the actual operating conditions that help compost packaging, and that there's really a lack of real guidance on that. So I definitely have my work cut out for me going forward. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing all that. And I wanted to see if there's maybe one or two other folks from maybe other stakeholder groups, maybe a composter or somebody from a different stakeholder group who'd be willing to just share what that experience was like for them to be part of this whole system strategic planning. Jeff, go ahead.
Great. I mean, lower my hand. Yeah, I agree with a lot of what I just heard. I thought that the most, I guess, eye-opening moment was when everybody took responsibility for not, crying uncle on the plastics problem. Personally, I think I've spent some energy pointing my finger at pe other people than the compost manufacturing group, and myself included. It's somebody else's problem. Why are we burdened by this? When you figure out how to fix a problem, then we'll jump right in there and we'll all work together then. And so I guess just, realizing that, we all we all have to share in moving the needle forward, and taking some responsibility for where we're at, I thought was pretty cool. So that's what I've been sharing to folks when they listen. And when they want to ask about what this event was like, there's a few takeaways, but that was the big one for me. So thank you.
That's great. Yeah, maybe one or two more people. Josh?
I'm figuring out how to turn my communication device back on. Here we are. Okay. Yeah. I really just Emily's recollections kind of brought a lot back for me, especially around that commitment to collaboration that we all experienced when we were there, and then the catharsis part. I think when I've been sort of pitching the experience to people, one of the biggest things that I come with is that prouds and sorries experience. I mean, I know it's common for a lot of us, but hearing, getting a chance to, as a manufacturer, as an R&D person, to be able to say, yeah, sometimes we just drop technology and think our job is done, and then see the nods around the room of people, I think from other groups saying, oh, they're aware of this problem. That was really powerful for me, to understand that a lot of the challenge around collaboration, I think, has to do with maybe justified feelings of not caring. And so to me, those nods that's part of that catharsis of being able to say, okay. And then also, obviously, to hear from composters, we understand that complaints about contamination can paint compostables in ways that composters didn't intend. And to really believe that and come away with that. Plus the idea that this is a long-term commitment. And that's the other thing that, again, as I pitch it, I've already had a colleague come to me just today and say, hey, which one of these groups are you? She's connected with FPI, who's also getting tied in with this initiative. And she said, which one of these groups, how many of these groups are you taking part in? I want to hook up with others to help out. And the enthusiasm is infectious. It's pretty cool.
That's right. Maybe one more person from a different stakeholder group. Okay, so we're gonna jump into talking about, hold on one second, going through this common ground. And so if you think about the purpose of this whole project, it really is to get to the heart of what is everybody ready and willing to work on together. And so that was what was in focus for us at the strategic planning event. And so the exercise that Ariel talked about that we went through to really listen for what is common amongst all the different stakeholder groups, and then build ideas around what was heard, and then go through a voting process of, that readiness piece. What are people ready and willing to do and work on together or support? That is how we emerged with our 10 initiatives, which creates our common ground agenda. And so we're going to spend, we have each of the 10 groups we're going to hear from, and each of these groups is going to talk about what their initiative is. And so for those in the audience, just be listening for things where you may want to jump in and help. And so that's going to be one of our asks at the end of our session today. So each group has about 5 to 6 minutes. We're going to go in order after we hear from group 9. And so we've got Braden up first, and then Clinton, you'll be up next. And so I'm going to stop sharing. So if there is a share that anybody wants to do, you can do that. Otherwise, we'll just spotlight you. And so Braden.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Good. I always like to double check that because I've started talking way too many times and they couldn't hear me. Yeah, thank you again for letting me go first. I have a meeting in 7 minutes that I need to run to, so I very much appreciate that. Is it easier for me to share my screen and show you what I'm looking at? Or what do you think?
Whatever you think would be the most helpful. So
Yeah, so let me remind myself how to do that on Zoom. And while I'm getting it pulled up, I can do basic introductions. So my team has 6 members. So I'll start with myself. Braden Cross. I work for Hudumaki. We're a food packaging manufacturer. Converter is really the more accurate way to put it. I am located in Kansas City. That's where our North American headquarters are. The rest of the team to run through quickly. Liz Chapman with Recycle Colorado. Brenda Platt with the Institute of Local Self-Reliance. And I believe she's in DC, if I'm not mistaken. Nama, and apologies, I don't really know how to pronounce her last name, Abrahimovic, something like that. She works for Napa Recycling in San Francisco. Michael Ryan, who's a composter in Tennessee. And then Jorge Montezuma, who is a compost consultant in North Carolina. So that is the current team. I'm still looking for, if there's any more members, we're happy to have more members. And I'm having a hard time with the sharing thing. I think it's probably an issue on my end, so I'll just speak to it.
And Braden, I can share what we have if that's helpful.
Yeah, if you can open up the Google Drive if you have that, or this works. Let's go with this. To establish the initiative statement, we'll start there. So our initiative statement is creating fundraising mechanisms to catalyze the growth of organics diversion infrastructure and using both government and non-government dollars. So what we mean by that is both in terms of literal, grant money and things like that, as well as EPR, tipping fees, other things, both mandatory and optional. So we recognized, as many at the conference did, that there is a big funding gap between what we at the conference, what we in the industry want to see, and what is currently there. So this is both for current and what we'll hope to see new infrastructure. So we're hoping to organize this initiative to step 1, make it more clear what funding already exists. So helping existing composters expand operations, hire more staff, things like that, grant money. And then also ways that we can raise more money or connect organizations together to influence legislation to raise more money, however actually that plays out, to help get composters more money and help grow the infrastructure, grow the industry. So we had our first meeting, the 6 of us, and we actually have our second meeting this afternoon, actually. And really this first meeting was mostly focused on, laying out where we are today. So, lack of funding. We listed land, equipment, training costs, CDL costs, facility design, permitting, and legal fees. We also listed out, what problems are we trying to address? So we listed collection, processing, the utilization of compost, so the end markets, infrastructure is existing sites and new sites, and then reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And that's really versus landfills, because of course food waste in a compost facility reduces a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. So yeah, kind of kept going through all these different things. What we're currently looking at as far as solutions here. Short term, as I said, it's really to create a grant program tip book is maybe the way I'll phrase it. We haven't decided exactly what to call it, but something where we can send out to composters, to anybody that's relevant, and they can quickly and easily find all the grant money that does exist. And because that may not be available, or not everyone may be aware of that. And then, like I said, bigger picture, we've been talking about meeting with a number of different outside organizations, SPC, BPI, others, and how can we, align together to help raise, larger amounts of money to help influence legislation. It's reminding myself which person is Brenda. Brenda Platt is, for example, working on some legislation in Maryland. Their organization has sponsored this bill that would essentially increase tipping fees for landfill to help make composting more cost effective. And the money is routed towards composting. The extra money, I should say. So, things like that. So yeah, happy to leading the group. Can't wait to continue to learn.
Thank you so much. And we're going to go next to group 1. And so Clinton has agreed to help us with that. And for those having issues with being able to join, that should be resolved. And so if you've gotten text from folks saying that they can't join, apologies about that. They should be able to join now. And so was just able to adapt that. Apologies. All right, so let's hear from Clinton, and Clinton will get your slide up on here.
So hi everybody, my name is Clinton Sander, and I work for A1 Organics here in Colorado. And Jeff Ziegenbein, did I say that right, Jeff? Ziegenbein? Was it close?
Yes, you did, Clinton.
Oh, good. Jeff and I are going to kind of tag team this a little bit. But one of our principal initiatives that came out of this was developing continued end markets for the beneficial use of finished compost. For compost manufacturers in all sizes across the country, in order to start accepting more challenging feedstocks or challenging organic streams, we have to make sure that there's an end market for the finished product created from those materials that we are composting. So people in our group, let's see here. Oh, thank you for this, because I didn't have all their last names. This is great. Let me read the statement. So our initiative is to create an adaptable toolbox for use and implementation for all market segments to increase the demand for the beneficial use of clean, valuable compost. Our group really believes that if we explain and understand the value of the finished product, and then we drive the markets, basically the rest is going to follow. Because of how impactful and how beneficial finished compost use is for developing healthy soils. Within our team is Jeff and I, as Jeff Ziegenbein from Waste Management. I'm from A1 Organics. We have Andrew, who's from Black Earth Compost. We have Brian Sherman over here from Cedar Grove. We have another, I don't see her on here, but she's with the EPA. So we have a really great group so far, and we will always take more. And what is this going to benefit besides the finished market? Hold on, I'm trying to jump back to my notes, Candy. So why is it so critical? No markets, no compost. More compost manufacturers, more competition for food waste and compostables. So improving, using the EPA initiatives for climate improvement, compost application and food diversion are the two top most important actions. And we're building healthy soil. Why are we building healthy soil? Carbon sink, water sequestration, or water retention, carbon sequestration, etc. And then our group has met multiple times already, and we have dove in pretty fast, and we have created a scope, a high-level scope, and an initiative to work with the United States Composting Council to try to develop this toolkit together and potentially use them as a platform for it. And we actually have aligned with the recent EPA grant that is out right now for finished compost markets for specifically, municipalities, residential, cities, gardeners, not so much agriculture, but this is going into that marketplace. So I'm gonna let Jeff dive in right now and kind of explain where we're at and how excited we are about it. And we're moving quick because the deadline is fast. So go ahead, Jeff.
Great. Thank you, Clinton. Yeah, as Clinton pointed out, no healthy markets, it really softens the enthusiasm for compost manufacturers to take in tricky products like compostable plastics and things like that. It's a tremendous barrier that we've noticed in common across the country. So an observation we had is that most of these tools that we want to include in the toolbox exist. They're just all over the place. And so many of us get requests to find some of these resources, and we can find them, but it's a struggle. So we put together the concept to gather some of these market development tools, model ordinances, all kinds of different resources that can help with moving compost in big and small scales across the country. And we wrote up that outline and worked with Linda from U.S. Composting Council, and it happens to fit directly in with a program they're working on with the EPA grant that Clinton mentioned. So we're developing a scope that talks not in tremendous detail about what the resources will be within the toolbox, but the structure and the types of materials, the concepts of a platform, of a marketing program that will have to be continuous and ongoing. And then probably most importantly will be a management system to keep it relevant, to keep it updated, to make sure that it's legal, appropriate to share, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a pretty good resource, I think, if we can get it developed, and it looks like the timing is excellent, and U.S. Composting Council is the right partner, and they are very receptive, and they recognize the gap as well. So we think we've got something here. So we're going to continue working away at this and hopefully bring back some good news as we move forward.
Thank you both. All right, let's hear from group 2. Joey. All right.
Great, thank you. And Kenny, yeah, you can put up the slide with our group. So
Great.
and I did see some other of our team from group 2. I think Evan and Stuart and Kelly. There might be some other people that I didn't catch on here. So one of the things that when I get up there, yeah, we go. So initiative 2, to identify, develop, and improve technologies to eliminate contamination. Of course, that seemed to be a very common theme across the aspect of just issues. Every time we talk about composting, that it comes up as a primary issue. And we realize that this is, a broad range, multidisciplinary, and involving all kinds of people. And so we would say we do have a good team there. With the leadership team, but we could use more help, because that's one thing we saw early on is this is really broad, and we actually came away from initial meeting realizing that we didn't really have a whole lot of action steps. So with a good discussion, a good meeting we had, more revised, and Stuart and Kelly and some other folks put a lot of work into kind of revising our purpose statement and seeing how broad this is. So one of the things that we believe that we see is that there's, when we talk about compost contamination, there's 2 crucial aspects, really that need to be addressed simultaneously and coordinated. So there's a downstream aspect and an upstream. And so the downstream is basically where the contamination from packaging is flooding into the compost facilities. And really, I think that's one thing I took away as a materials person is that in some sense, composters are doing us a favor by taking compostable materials. They really want the food waste. And so we want to facilitate that and make that easier without contaminating. But they really want that food diversion. And obviously not the contamination. And then the other area is the upstream, which is the materials that we use in the food service packaging, particularly. So, from the upstream end, we want to eliminate contamination by engineering materials and formats that streamline and simplify, homogenize the non-food inputs that go into compost manufacturing. And so downstream is, the home, the business, venues with source separation of organics, all the way to the compost manufacturing process itself. So, we have to work and using technology, for example, mechanical or other technology to keep contamination away from the compost facilities, where the upstream side is really, the work of the raw material suppliers and packaging manufacturers, really to come up with suitable streamlined material and formats that basically are not just neutral, but really are designed as carbon sources that can benefit the produced compost for the compost manufacturers. So seeing how broad this initiative is, cradle to cradle, just cradle to cradle, that we really could use some more help. So no matter where you sit in this chain, this value chain, there's spot in this, whether you're on the downstream end or the upstream end, we could definitely use some more help.
Thank you so much, Joey. All right, let's hear from group 3. We've got Brandy and Lauren. I don't know who wants to start.
Hey guys, I know Lauren was having trouble getting into the meeting and I let her know, but I can certainly kick it off. So we are the collaboration group and we just wanted to kind of focus on, there's so much with the folks like digging into the meat and potatoes and stuff, but we really want to be like kind of the party group, the fun group, the people that make sure that everyone continues to collaborate. So I'm not going to take up too much of your time because we have a lot more to talk about. You can see the folks in our working group in front of you, and we need to do some more work on making sure that we're getting together and meeting. But truly, the two primary things that we would love to focus on is essentially pinpointing who could be a collaboration champion within each of the other groups. That collaboration champion will be the person that could just send us a couple of bullet points every once in a while that just states, hey, these are the ways that we are collaborating within our group. And then we can in turn report back to you guys and just sort of highlight and distribute these updates. So we just want to make sure everyone's still having fun and making things happen. And then the second thing we would love to do, not to add additional things to anyone's plate, is to schedule some virtual happy hours and things like that. Just something where everyone can be laid back and we can talk about the stuff that each group is working on. But we can also just have some fun. And the event that we all attended in September was so to I think Caddy's point, like intense and potentially exhausting. But the takeaway that so many of us had from that event was just that lovely feeling of collaboration that we all had at the end of it. So we kind of just want to keep that going. So again, we're the fun group, we're the party group, and that is our mission moving forward. And that's all I got.
And then if Lauren does hop in, let me know if there's anything else that you guys want to add from your action plan. That's great. Thank you. Okay, next up is group 4, Rena.
Hi, Rena, Bottom White Cross Resource Conservation Specialist at Seattle Schools. It was great to meet with everyone in September and to represent being a large generator of compost. Can you pull up our slide that shows our people? All right, so we are the Composting Education Initiative, and our initiative, let's see what it says here. We had about 21 people sign up. So Our initiative is to develop a national education campaign on composting that is clear, accessible, adaptable for all audiences and regions. And we changed it a little bit to say, focus on how to sort compostable materials, preventing contamination, and the process of composting itself and its environmental benefits. So we took out the contamination definition, figuring that that was coming in through other groups. And there were other people that have been added to our group that have popped in. As you've seen, and you're going to see, a lot of the same names are going to be coming up on these different groups because we're all interested in all of these aspects. But we can always use more people to help us out. So one of the things that we talked about was all of the information that's already out there, and recognizing that's been mentioned before is this EPA grant. And so wanting to see if there's already a group that could be applying for money that we can join, given that the timeline for that is quite short. We basically determined that our initiative statement is very well aligned with that the recycling education and outreach grant, specifically there's 3 parts to it, but specifically around increased education and outreach to households on composting. So we figured that with our group and the information that we have, that we can help out best in that particular area. So we're going to be finding out some more information. The problems that we're hoping to address are, of course, reducing contamination, and with increased diversion of food waste, that's going to, as was mentioned before, reduce methane, and want to work on the inconsistency and confusion around what is compostable. Talking about soil health, I think there's been a disconnect, people not understanding that when they compost, that actually improves soil health, climate drawdown, climate change, but really looking at trying to add composting to the curriculum in schools. So one of the things we're looking at is on a nationwide level, it's state by state is different. So the next part we'll be working on what is being taught and how we might be able to make sure that composting is part of that curriculum. So I'm going to keep it short to allow other people time to speak.
So much, Rena. Great work already. All right. So group 5, Michael.
Sure, Michael Westerfield here. I'm co-leading this group with Wendell Simonson from Eco Products. Our initiative is standardized product labeling, and other members include Kate Bennett, she's also from Eco Products, Michelle Castro from NSF, Carlton Gibbs from Graphic Packaging, Jennifer Mackey from Bunzel, Emily Parsons from Solenis, Gwen Richardson and Danny Labatt from Repurpose, Michael Ryan from New Terra Compost, and Aaron Sachs from Green Paper Products. So we've got a pretty diverse group of folks here. And our initiative statement, we chose each word very carefully. It is to create specific, feasible, and enforceable standards for universally recognizable on-product identification and substantiation. So we're trying to solve some macro issues with labeling. One of them is obviously contamination. Another one is consumer confusion. Third is consumer ease of identification. We want something that's super simple for people to be able to recognize that, hey, this package is compostable. We want to try to stop greenwashing with these labels, and then also provide certifying label claims on there as well. And then the challenges specific to labels that we need to deal with and overcome are the feasibility for adoption. The labeling of small items are challenging forms. So if you think of like a little stir stick or maybe something that's a pleated paper, those are a little bit more challenging to label than something like a clamshell package. We also want to create a non-proprietary logo so everyone can use it. And I label that includes room for third-party certifiers, something that provides substantiation, something that's enforceable, something that we can get everybody to buy into, because, you know, brands really value that marketing space on packaging, and they don't want to give a lot of it up to, you know, labeling for something like this. So we have to be careful there to make sure it gets widely adopted. And then ultimately, it needs to be compliant in all 50 states. So, you know, we're seeing states pop up with their own laws regarding labeling of compostable packaging. So we want to make sure that we're compliant. So as a next step, we're going to be reviewing potential labeling standards and comparing them to the issues that I just talked about that we hope to solve and overcome. And then we're going to determine, you know, which ones or which aspects are going to be winning solutions for the industry. So we'll take it from there. Wendell, I see you're on the phone. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would just say, can you hear me? Yeah,
Yes.
I would just say that, you know, there's probably going to be a regulatory mandatory piece of this and then a voluntary piece of it too. And people probably know that there's a federal labeling bill inclusive of all single-use packaging that's getting some traction and could get introduced as early as next legislative session in 2025. So that's on the radar too, and we'll need tight integration with the regulatory groups as that are a part of this, and then of course all the other regulatory groups to make sure that we've got good alignment there.
Yeah, great work. I know that you guys have been pretty actively organizing already, so it's just wonderful. Next up is group 6, and so Linda and James, I don't know if you want to tag team.
Well, I know James is having trouble with internet, and I know Jamie is on here too. I wasn't sure, Jamie, if you were planning to present, but I can go ahead if not.
And I'll share your group.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No,
Well, maybe
Linda, I was not, so thank you.
Oh, okay. Yes, so our group is all about infrastructure, more the other group that presented, I believe it was Braden's group about the funding for infrastructure, and we may have some, you know, need to consult because they're focusing on funding for infrastructure and we're focusing on ways to educate and talk to people about growing infrastructure. And Jamie, who's on the call today, facilitated us at the event. And you can see who is on the work team there. We have a pretty nice group, but I think that since municipalities, we talked a lot about local governments being a key to this infrastructure, especially those that are doing green waste composting right now, getting them to adopt food waste composting and to incorporate compostables where it's feasible is where we need to be going. So we definitely could probably use more municipal voices on our group, but you can see who some of the great folks are that are there. I won't read them all off since they're right there on the screen. But why do we feel this is critical? Is because there's obviously not enough capacity. That was one of the big takeaways. And I think any of us that think about this realize this. And we need to optimize what the reason that compostables came into the stream, which was to bring food waste, bring nitrogen into compost piles. The whole purpose of composting is healthy soils and methane reduction and climate resiliency. So all of these are important elements of why we need to expand infrastructure. We felt that conditions that would be supportive or that would show that we have an environment for things to thrive when it comes to infrastructure would be increasing. Well, our philosophy is that all sizes of composting are part of infrastructure. So we don't have a particular emphasis on any one size of compost facility, but we do want it to stay as local as possible. So there has to be more focus on equipment of all sizes, including small equipment for smaller operations. We need to be sure that as we're developing infrastructure that we're prioritizing a clean stream of materials so that we're producing quality compost to generate healthy soil and other conditions that need to be present that We want to integrate our consistent environmental regulation, permitting, and compliance, and more local, state, and state policies to support composting, whether it's on the market side or on development of facilities. Public education, we have another whole group devoted to that, which we may, watch what they're doing and pull some of it into our work. And as well as making sure people are aware of templates that are out there and things for better zoning and land use and permitting. So some of our action items include having advertising consolidated inventories of resources like U.S. Composting Council's Target Organics, or I know that ILSR has some community scale resources to put out there, so that's on our list. Education around some of the great work that's been done to convert yard waste compost sites to food scrap facilities, coordinating with other organizations where there are municipal recycling coordinators and people who have composting under their responsibility, like SWANA. And just identify and gather national, city, and county organizations where we need to get this in front of policymakers at a high level in local governments. So we are still getting started. So if you want to join us, you haven't missed much, please join our group, especially if you're municipal and you can help us get advice as to how to reach out to your group. And James and Jamie, if you want to add anything that I missed.
I think that was great. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. Let's go to group 7. Diana.
Wonderful, thank you. We are group 7, focused around the mission statement to form a national, diverse, multi-stakeholder group to develop a federal EPR framework. We have a triple co-lead here, sharing the work between Darla Arians from Colorado Waste Management, Kat Smith from Yum Brands, and myself with Biologic. And we have relentless support from Wayne Shilka from Eagle Flexible Packaging, Peter Jones of Seaman Paper, Jennifer Mackey from Bunzel, Jamie Jones from Gator Paper, Kelvin Okamoto, Green Bottom Line, and Brandy Moe with Republic Services. So the goal is to, again, create a multi-stakeholder group to develop federal EPR framework. I want to take a moment and clarify that. We're not developing the framework ourselves. We're simply creating, the goal is primarily to create a even larger multi-stakeholder group to then form that federal EPR framework. The eventual goal of that framework will be to address unsustainable packaging that causes contamination, pollution, and creates health concerns. Try to address industry and consumer confusion, lack of consistency, and clarify for producers their roles and responsibilities, lack of access to services, lack of funding, and again, that little or end market drive for compost, and how can we also improve that? So it's very supplemental to many of the initiatives that have been spoken about already today. In terms of our action plan, we are scheduling bi-monthly check-in calls. The initiatives immediately is to draft an outreach letter to share with potential stakeholders. Our goal is to have that started and in progress by the end of this year. And then beginning early next year to really start reaching out to our networks, identify other key stakeholders who might want to be a part of this initiative, and really start gaining that traction. So far, we have established a recurrent meeting cadence. So every other Thursday for 45 minutes, we'll be convening to work on this together. The next one will be on November 21st at 10 a.m. if anybody else is interested in joining this group. We identified our existing tools, and we also built a wish list of additional potential tools and resources that may be helpful in achieving this mission. And one thing we identified too is the importance for, maybe not active everyday participation in this group, but facilitating stakeholder support with external partners or industry experts who, may be willing to provide their guidance and insight on, a 1 or 2 or 3 time basis to really help drive this initiative to its end goal. In terms of next steps, we will be meeting in the smaller groups to begin drafting that outreach message to additional potential stakeholders. And we all unanimously and strongly agree that we will need to keep pushing forward, regardless of what comes down the line in terms of federal policy, to drive this into action and really create engagement across the board. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Shanna. Up next, group 8, Janet.
Okay, thank you, Candy. Our group is tasked with and will be working on creating a unified laboratory and field testing standards. And I think most folks know that there are multiple standards out there presently, and that can create a moving target not only for product manufacturers, but for composters as well. It's very important to us that this be a consensus-based, scientific, transparent set of criteria. So our group has met once, and Bill Whitley and I are taking the lead on this. Our work team has expanded already. We have a number of participants across the board. In our first team meeting, we did identify a couple of more voices that we think are important to be in the room, and we're reaching out to them. There is also an open invitation. If you are interested in this topic, you are certainly welcome to join us. We'll be meeting bi-monthly, and our first task is to develop a problem statement. We feel like doing research is going to be extremely important to identify what the current standards are, what is the evidence basis for those standards, and to determine what bases we should use to develop a unified standard. So we'll develop our problem statement. We will dig into identifying the current standards, and not only for laboratory and field testing, but also for composting parameters, sort of best practices if you're going to take compostables. And then we will identify what is the appropriate vehicle or venue for moving this initiative forward. Is it ASTM? Is it, ISO? Where will this live once we develop a standard? We will also be reaching out to subject matter experts who may not be on the group to fill in some gaps for us. So, and Bill or anybody from our group, if I've missed anything, please let me know.
Over. Okay. And last but not least, group 10. And so Elisha,
It's hard to remember.
Good to see you. Yes, and I will share in just a moment your group.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. I'll just start with a statement. So our mission statement is that we're calling for a legislation, a federal level legislation, and there's a few key points to it. Enforceable, science-based, bipartisan support. Sort of, if it's the good law, the idea is that you're going to get that. Provides for both the public and the private sector. Localized composting and the use of in products, along with this encouraged consumer use of. I mean, there's a lot of parts to this, but if you look at some of these other mission statements. There is an education mission statement. There's a labeling mission statement. There are a lot of mission statements that actually cover a lot of what the goal was here. And so what this sort of became through the process was, well, we need somewhere for all of this to go, right? I mean, if we don't really want to make 8 different try to build 8 different legislative structures out of this and have all these different things going on. Where does it all come together, right? And so that was sort of the idea for this. And I think part of the, going through the notes, I was reviewing some of the notes recently. One of the things that was circled a lot on the handwritten notes was incentive. So what we really wanted to do is create a way to encourage a more circular process. So it was really jarring to me. Let me just say, it was really jarring to me almost to when we showed up there and a bunch of composters said, "We don't want your stuff." I was like, "Wait, our stuff is the best. What do you mean you don't want?" They're like, "Well, we want the food waste, but there's a lot of other things that come with it, right?" And so we started talking about it. We're going, there's a lot of legislation frameworks out there. A lot of people talking about legislation that are saying, "Hey, let's force composters to take these things." Well, the system's not set up for all of our compostable products and wrappers and everything else to go into the system and have it function at all. The system is not set up for that. So we really started to look at what can we do to encourage, to incentivize, to make these composters want, or at least be willing to accept our stuffs. And because if we can build it around asking, them wanting more compostable goods and products and food waste and things, then they're going to be more willing to adjust their processes and look at some of these other best practices for these new materials that they've never dealt with and things of that nature. And if we have federal support to help with new infrastructure for these composters, or the infrastructure needed to take a grass clippings only composter and license that to be a food waste composter. Those are 2 different license levels. And the food waste one requires things that the other kind doesn't, and it costs money. And so if we can incentivize those people, "Hey, do you want these things?" "Yes, we do want these things." "Well, here's how we can help you accept them." That was a big part of this discussion. Then the other side was Clinton Sanders had mentioned it. What can composters do with their compost, right? If they drastically increase the amount of compost that they're manufacturing, where does it go? And so we wanted to try to open up as many new options as possible. And one of the big places is agriculture, regenerative agriculture. I don't think I've heard anybody talking about that today, but regenerative agriculture was actually a big subject of the Denver meeting, because everybody was going, "Wow, these essentially dead farmlands are all over the place. Compost would help to, at a large scale, would help these croplands turn into more healthy croplands, and the amount of compost that would be needed is just enormous." And so that right there, incentivizing our U.S. extractive agriculture system to look at it as more like a regenerative model and start shifting that direction, is going to drastically increase the demand for compost. And so now you have the pull coming from one end, and now you have the composters are going to be incentivized to want to bring in more compostable things, more food waste, more things like that, because they have a real good outlet to go sell those things. And then lastly, because I know I'm sort of going on, I think longer than most people, but lastly is just definitions, right? Standardization across all the states at a federal level. Obviously, the way we would build it is here's sort of the groundwork. If a state wants to go above and beyond, that's fine. But definitions, it was really surprising, I think, to everybody in the room when in the afternoon, I believe it was on day 1, somebody raised their hand and said, "Can we define compost?" This whole room of compost people, and we realized we weren't even talking about the same definition of compost, right? So having a standard definition, a standard set of what it means to be compostable, those sorts of things that are really crucial if we want to focus everybody's energy in the same direction. And so all of those things are intended to be a part of this. And then, so number 10 is sort of designed to be where a lot of these other initiatives come together and become one product at the end. So yeah, thanks everybody for being here.
That's great. And a couple of things that we can share. We're going to get into how to get involved. You've heard from all the different groups about interest in having additional support. I know that a lot of people are here today that weren't able to come in Denver, and this really is the time now to jump into the work. And so we'll talk about how we're going to do that in a little bit. But we've got a little bit of time and wanted to see if there were any kind of burning questions that anybody had for any of the initiative team members. And so just wanted to open it up for a little bit. All right. So if you think of anything, put it in the chat. And so we'll be collecting that. Heather, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, how does one become a member of the leadership team for a topic?
Yep. So we have shared and we'll share again. There is a sign up form where you can share your interest for being on the leadership team, for being on one of the initiative teams, or for being in one of our stakeholder feedback groups. So we're going to go through that as we close the meeting. And so you'll see that in the chat. But great question. Yeah, Diana.
Thank you. One question that our team had when we met previously as well was specifically on what platform, a digital platform that could be used, not only just for our group, but for this larger working group as well, whether it be Slack or something similar. What's the word? Information sensitivity was really important as well. So making sure that if we are sharing sensitive information, having a platform that takes that data security into account is important. So we don't need anything right now, but I did want to pass that along in terms of our larger working group.
That's great. We did a kickoff meeting with all the leads a couple of weeks ago and talked about different needs. What we've set up initially for now is a Google workspace for each of the initiative teams. And then we were able, Slack is something else that we will be setting up. And so it's figuring out, we have an ask out in for a potential host. And so we're just figuring out the parameters of that. But there's, Diana, what you bring up is, what do the groups need to be effective and also cross team? So each of these initiatives represents kind of a whole part of the Common Ground agenda. And so there's going to be different opportunities and needs for collaboration. And so our goal is to create the structures of support for that ease of use and ease of collaboration and ease of communication as we move forward, so you can continue kind of this new way of working together as you work individually on the initiatives. And then also there's a lot of crossover, right? It's an ecosystem. And so an easy way for the work that's being done to be visible, and an easy way to know, okay, here's where I want to jump in. And so those are some of the structures of support that we are developing as we get ready to launch activation. So Ariel, I don't know if you wanted to share more about that.
I think the only other missing piece is like a project management tool, like we talked about Trello or Asana, but just something that's where you can kind of like double click into each of the work streams, and you can kind of see the backlog of like what's the work that is underway, and like where are the helpful links that are pinned that I can go see the structure or the contact info for some of the leads. And so it's like we're trying to build the capacity for self-organization and self-management. And right now we're still building, like we need to kind of form the structure and get in a cadence. But then because of the tools that we have and the platform that we're using, like folks are empowered to kind of work across boundaries and be able to have visibility into all of the different work streams to seek those interdependencies and synergy points, because there will likely be many.
So yeah, this blends beautifully with just high level what we wanted to highlight about what our intention and our role is in kind of supporting activation. And so, Ariel, I don't know if you want to talk through these pieces.
Sure. Yeah, so we're really practicing operating at the network level, which is a different muscle, I think, than working at an organizational level, since we're working across boundaries and we're dealing with a topic that is complex. And so there are different like principles that we're weaving into this approach that are built in that work with the science of complex adaptive systems. And so we shared some of these at the event at the end, but we were really wanted to organize around like the energy, who is kind of coming forward as most engaged and committed. We need a collaborative platform, and it's really a hub. Like, so we're kind of building this network structure. It's centered in a hub that is this collaborative platform that allows us to work across boundaries. Will be emerging leverage points, I think, that will come out of these various work streams where we see some commonalities of like, wow, if we really collectively think about putting our energy in this one place, it's going to help all of our work streams be effective. So it's like that's why we need to be working within, but also working across and like being in a cadence of coming back to the whole. And Candy will talk a little bit about like the activation steering committee structure and what that looks like to ensure that there's coordinated effort across all of the teams. And we really want to like empower this decision making so that we want some level of structure and governance and shared leadership, but like we don't want to be held back in the decision making and really allow like decision making to infiltrate at the organizational level and have those organizations feel empowered to make moves that align with some of these broader workstream initiatives. So it's like the right level of governance and the right level of flexibility. And the other thing is like we don't know, we're kind of entering in like a new territory and we don't have all the answers. And when we are working in a complex environment, like we must embrace an iterative, adaptive approach to learning and an experimental approach. So it's like being okay with failing and pivoting and adjusting. And like that process of insight is going to happen in the meeting cadence that we set up. And so some of these needs, we don't know exactly what we need yet because these teams have not fully adopted the platform and have not fully been in a cadence of working with one another. Like they've just started, right? They've just come together, had the initial conversation, and like with ongoing conversations, there's going to be a lot more that emerges. And so we just want to be prepared for that and be open to that and expect that there's going to be other things that come up that we don't know yet and we can't see yet, especially with all of these concurrent work initiatives and things happening in the external environment that we want to plug into and work alongside. And so, yeah, this is a behavior change at the deepest level, and we're stronger in the network together. And so that is why it is so important that we are like getting a broader set of stakeholders in the conversation today. And we need to continue doing that. Like we can't just only work as these work streams in isolation and then come together. Like we need to be thinking about more broadly, who do we need to bring in to help us have increased leverage and influence? So this is kind of the weaving that we are entering to activate this network and kind of the principles around it. And the process is like we're right now we're kind of in the formation phase of forming the structure. We're figuring out who are the leaders. Many of y'all are on the calls today sharing kind of where you're at. And then what we want to build, in the next couple of months is like that cadence and that structure and kind of uplift that and get it functioning. And that that pattern will help with the emergence of additional needs. And what we're really building to is this expansive network. So we want more visibility, engagement, and more people to plug in to what we're doing from all the various points in the system that they come from.
And something that we've talked about is this project was set up in a very intentional way to create a collective leadership model. And what we mean by that is to create a level playing field for all voices from the different stakeholder groups across the whole system as a way to create an environment where true collaboration, better communication, and alignment is possible. And so everything that we are building in support of the activation of the wonderful Common Ground agenda that was built at the strategic planning event is a way for us to ensure that this new practicing, this new way of working more seamlessly together is supported in an effective way. And so as we are building, so right now we're post-event, we've been working with the different initiative teams, and we've been getting ready for this event today and to really create this open invitation for, here are the things that emerged as a Common Ground agenda, the 10 different interconnected pieces. And so how do we create the structures of support to move forward? And so our first task is to create a new steering committee, an activation steering committee. We are looking, so that steering committee will be both we ideally would be cross-sector representation for one half of it, and the other half of it are the liaisons and the leads for from each of the initiative teams. And so Brandy talked a lot about collaboration and how essential that is, and the idea of having collaboration champions. So the Activation Steering Committee is one of the spaces where the whole group is coming back together through representation. And so we've got the steering committee, we have each of the work streams, so the 10 different work stream teams, and then we're going to introduce another way to be involved if you don't have a lot of time, but you would like to have a way to influence and provide feedback. And so this, so we're going to start with one of 3 different ways to be involved initially. And the first is the leadership group. And so this activation steering committee, we're looking for about 15 to 20 people who will be at-large members. And then we will have, in addition to that, the 10 initiative team liaison members. And so this group is going to meet monthly, and the focus is going to be on guiding the strategy, the whole system engagement, communication, between the different teams and amongst the whole system, and funding of the activation of the whole system strategic plan. And so the expectation is a monthly meeting, and then there are going to be subcommittees. And so one of the things that we're exploring is the possibility of being on a subcommittee of the Activation Steering Committee. And so we already have one that has emerged. So we have a finance and funding group that has started meeting right after the event. And there will be other subcommittees. And so we will be communicating out kind of different ways to be involved. But if you're interested in being part of the leadership group for this project during the activation, that is an option in the sign up form. The second option is you have a way to sign up for one, or if you like, more than one initiative workstream team. And so as you've heard from the amazing groups that have started their work at the event and then have continued to start to build their action plans for this coming year, have the opportunity to work in the area where you want to give the most support. And so the idea of the Common Ground agenda is, what is everybody ready and willing to do and support? This is where you can either get directly involved in the work of each of an individual initiative work stream, or to be able to kind of understand how you would like to influence and be involved in that. And so these groups are meeting in a minimum monthly. Some are meeting more often than that, depending on, I know, different timelines and deadlines that you're navigating around, especially around some of the grants that some of the teams are working on. And so so that one form that you saw on how to get involved, this is one of those options, and you can sign up to be on one team or more, whatever you have the bandwidth for and are ready to support. And then we are building stakeholder specific feedback teams. And so basically, this is a group where within each, we know that each stakeholder group has a rich array of different perspectives, sizes, different ways, even within each stakeholder group that you're playing within the system. And so the idea is that as the initiative teams are doing their work, when they get to a point where they need whole system feedback, that they can send specific questions they have, or they can share an idea to get feedback on some of the things that are emerging out of that work. And so if you want to be stakeholder feedback team member, basically the ask is to share insights from where you sit, to provide feedback about any positive or negative impacts that the idea or proposal might have for your specific group, and to think and provide feedback about potential unintended consequences. And so by signing up for being on the feedback team, basically you would be available for any of the initiative teams to say, hey, this is what we're thinking about, and then request that feedback. And so those are kind of the three different ways to be involved. Right now, again, this is an emergent project, and so that will shift as needed. Ariel, anything that I missed on those three pieces? Okay.
No, just the opportunity to express interest is it's all in the same form. That's the last link in the chat. So we're going to be gathering this, throughout the end of the year, probably waiting until we have critical mass and a little bit more clarity on kind of like the launching of the structure and platform and everything, and then we'll probably reach back out in the early January. So yeah, so just to kind of give a high level understanding of like where we are in this project, like the last couple months of this year, it's like we're kind of in a limbo. We're kind of in a gap part of the phase where we're building, and we're wanting to kind of establish the cadence for collaboration, the formation of the steering committee, like who is opting in, what roles are they playing on the steering committee, and how are we setting everybody up for success so they have the pathways of communication and visibility to work together to drive some of this forward. And so we are still looking for shared funding partners. So we'll show in a second just all the wonderful organizations that have really got us to the event. And that will be kind of an ongoing explorative conversation in not only just for the project, but also for the work streams and what they need. Because we really want to resource this work well, since you actually have seen just how powerful all of your initiatives are in terms of the potential. And I think just like it's really important for us to help you to keep this alive and keep this momentum going, and really like make a difference, and see these things lead into really powerful places. So next year, we've heard from a couple of our stakeholder groups like the roadmap. And so I think there's this concept of really fleshing out what this roadmap is and how organizations can play into this roadmap and where are the synergies of those intersection points. We want to launch the project management of these workstream initiatives. We want to practice the meeting cadence and the structure. We want to leverage the platform. Expand, as I said, expand the funding capacity for emerging project needs, build the capacity for self-organization, coordinate broader network to maximize impact, and we want to prepare for the facilitator handoff. And so we're like right now, the people holding this are Candy and I. Like we are kind of the glue in setting y'all up, and we want to get everyone to a point where you have everything you need to thrive. But we're kind of holding this right now, and we really need your support to help us hold this for you so we can help us help you, basically.
Heather, I see you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So is there a process for adding another topic group? I feel like there's a big gap, and I wonder if we have a process for doing that.
And so you mean adding in a new initiative?
That's exactly what I mean, yes.
Okay. And so at the event, we had 110 different organizations and over 15 stakeholder groups rally around 17 different ideas and then determine, what is it that everybody is ready and willing to support. And that's how the 10 emerged. And so we have posted on the public website the 10 that passed, basically, that become the common ground agenda that this project will support. And then we have all the other initiatives that, for one reason or another, it isn't that they weren't important, but they aren't going to move forward in terms of being supported by this particular project. And so if there is a new idea, I think that that it seems like that may be connected to some of the work that's already underway. And so that's a potential way to look for ways to engage something that you think isn't being addressed. But I do think that for this project, we went through a very thorough process to identify what is common amongst all of the different stakeholders, and that's what we're going to move forward and support. And so there are a lot of different pieces of work that are out there that have resonance and have an importance for the system. But we had a lot of different ways where that could emerge at the event. And so if it didn't emerge, I would guess that it is something that is probably important, but may not have been supported by everybody.
Andy, can I just also chime in real quick? Our initiative 10W, it is almost like a catch-all. So if there's an idea that's sort of related to something already out there, I would say, reach out to me. We can talk. We do also have a list of the initiatives that didn't make it, so we can sort of check that against that list and say, well, it was brought up and it didn't pass through. But if there is something, I'd definitely be willing to talk about it and just see if it fits somewhere existing into maybe ours or one of the other parts that's feeding into our initiative.
That's great. Thank you, Lisha. And so, yeah, Ariel.
Yeah, so just wanted to make a plug for us to support you, to help us continue to support this project. Like, you guys know our capacity for delivering, and we're just at this critical point where we really need to build and launch. And so just wanted to express our gratitude for all of our shared funding partners who have got us to the event. And a little bit of your support helps us go a long way. And so we only have it's a realistic amount of hours to do the bare minimum to get y'all up, empowered, and rolling. And so we are asking for shared funders to come forward. Those who have not been a part of this yet, that maybe you came to the event, you liked what you saw, you are excited about the potential of this, please consider becoming a shared funder. It's a $4,000 commitment for 2025. And just that will really help us be resourced in this interim period to launch. And that is not the full extent. I think there's a lot of creative ways to think about how we can fund this systemic change effort. And that will be an ongoing conversation that we will be having at the steering committee level, and a responsibility of those who are on the activation steering committee. And so I've just put the link in the chat. So if you want to have a follow-up conversation with us, please fill out the form and we'll be in touch with you.
Sorry, and there's as we are in this kind of end of year building phase to get ready to support all this amazing work in 2025, one of the things that we're working on is looking at some anchor organizations to hold this project moving into 2025. And so you're going to see an announcement about that. One of the things that we are also doing is getting the word out about what happened and how to get involved. First up next year is USCC's Compost 2025. And so we will be there, and we will have an opportunity to talk about what whole system collaboration looks like. And then we know that there are a number of industry events. And so be thinking about all the different ways to bring everybody kind of into the work that is happening. And as I say that, I also wanted to share in this space that, one of the first big projects of part of the steering committee is looking at all the work that is out there, and how do the initiatives that came out of this process align, so that is connected and interconnected work. And so the idea is to ensure that this cross communication, cross collaboration is as seamless as possible. And so right now we are in that building phase. And so wanted to just share our appreciation. We are recording this, we're going to put it up on the project YouTube channel, where the 14 discovery workshops live as well. And so that'll be up by the end of the day. You'll see an announcement about next steps on our LinkedIn page, and then we will be sending an organizing email to all the folks that sign up on the I want to get involved form, so that you can connect as quickly as possible to the different groups that you want to work for. And then we are hoping to kick off the new leadership group, the steering committee, before the end of the year. And so you'll be hearing from us soon. Just sitting in so much appreciation for all of the amazing work that has been done, and for the groups that contributed to the discovery workshops, for the groups that were able to come in Denver in September, and then for all of the work that's underway right now. And so just really appreciate how hard everybody has leaned in, and so excited to support continued and effective cross-system collaboration. And so thank you again, and looking forward to staying in touch with everybody.